That's a really good info.
You can't walk up to your table and say, "Oh fuck, you guys here again? What fuck? You want the same old shit? You know what do you want?
Yeah.
Tell me what you want. You know, I'm here. I'm gonna take your order, bitch. What do you want?"
There's a lot of people this day and age that don't even drink. They'll come in and they'll just, you know, get water
Well,
or
they
some
shouldn't be
lemonade.
allowed in the cafe. They should just go home. Yeah, go cook at home. Yeah, go to the co-op and buy some shit and try and make it fancy and tasty, and don't even go out, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's the anniversary of Ra's passing, and we are doing a little memorial. First, I'm gonna grab his CD.
Poets know the place. These we'll see. Palm trees sway in the night air.
The little ones work? Are you planning on carrying that?
Ancient memories where you know it's fate. I'd like to welcome you to the package to Revita. Your hard nose is grace, as we'll see. Poets know the place. Sometimes your hard nose is grace.
They got that.
We sing neutrino songs, cosmic all along, cosmic all along. My shells Desdemona's hell. Do you remember? It could not alter the nature of being altered. Cargo through darkness, long lines of light, bumper to Cassiopeia's chassis. Said the stranger with the key. Drop your tomorrows. I can get away. Lay my hands on the grave. That's the last days. Until you finish. But the door has no meaning. Door leads nowhere. Lay your hands on a gravestone. Are they on the other side? Well, I'm just another. Just open the damn door. You've got no choice but to follow the tide. It appears to be true. There is nothing new. No matter what you say, turned any other way. Smile and say goodbye. When your heart can sigh to those violins, the soft sweet stroke that never ends.
Looks like those creatures you were playing in that game.
Yeah.
Oh, Marcus. Okay, yeah.
Hello. Today I'm going to talk about profile. When you get into human design, there are so many different directions you can go with it. And there are really three fundamental areas that you can begin with your study. Now, of course, strategy and authority and type, this is the mechanics. And so when we're talking about the mechanics, what we're really talking about is how the life force energy operates. And this is really the true entry point to all human design experimentation, because it's experimenting with your strategy and authority, your life force energy, your mechanics. And so to understand the mechanical level is, I guess, the first area of study in human design. And this is what we study when we look at channels, when we look at centers, when we look at the aura and how the aura operates, when we look at type mechanics. Then we have the substructure. And this is a relatively recent area of study in human design. I mean, only really the past 15 years or so. For the first 15 years of human design study, it wasn't really about the substructure. It wasn't until the early 2000s, I guess 20 years now. This is in 2023, and this is being recorded. And so about 20 years now we've looked into substructure, and this is really awareness. It's all about awareness, how cognition works, how awareness works. The study of variable, for instance. Now, obviously, there's more to it than just that. I mean, there's your environment, there's PHS, and yet when we're going beneath the line, we're really looking at we're looking at the cognitive underpinnings of the form, and so we're looking at questions like what supports the cognition and what hinders the cognition, and what is the cognitive potential of the form. And then perhaps the main question I get, people coming into human design, it really relates to this third area. And this is what we're going to be talking about today in this introduction to profile. And that is the question of purpose. Because you can really bring someone to correctness of their mechanics, to operating, making decisions based on their life force energy, honoring their life force energy, honoring their channels. You can bring them to an awareness of it as well, and nurturing their cognitive potential through eating correctly and through all these things that help nurture their cognition. So you can handle the awareness and the mechanics, but there's still the question of why. What is the purpose? It's kind of like the search for meaning. You can't just tell someone who feels their life is meaningless to look in a dictionary. It doesn't work that way. Meaning is something that emerges through the fulfillment of purpose. And profile is the costume of purpose. Our profiles really give us hints as to what our purpose is, what our role is in this life. What role are we here to play? If you're looking at life as, kind of as Shakespeare did, where all the world's a stage, and we're all actors in each other's plays and so on, what character are you playing? What role are you playing? And what purpose does that character have? And so these costumes of purpose, this is what we're studying when we study profile. And that's what I hope to give an introduction to today in this introduction to profile. So thank you for joining me on this journey. You can't understand profile without understanding line. Every profile is the combination of two lines, the personality line and the design line, which is to say the conscious line and the unconscious line. These are the lines of your personality Sun Earth and your design Sun Earth. That is, the line you were born into, the line of the Sun and the Earth at the moment you were born. That's the personality. And then the line of the Sun and Earth 88 degrees before you were born. That's the design. Look at the 12 profiles. What you quickly discover is that there are 2 profiles for each of the 6 personality lines. The same is also true for each of the 6 lines on the design side. But we start with the 1-3, and then we go to the 1-4. Then we do the 2-4 and the 2-5, then the 3-5 and the 3-6. As you can see, the design line, which is the second line in profile, 1-3, the third line is the design. 1-4, the fourth line is the design. The design line always changes first. That is, we're staying on the first line while the design changes from a third to a fourth line. We're staying in the same personality, the second line, when the design changes from a 4 to a 5, from the 2-4 to the 2-5 profile. What this does is it gives us a fundamental theme of the personality line as that of continuity, and the design as that of development. The personality gives us continuity. The design is what develops. In other words, change occurs unconsciously. Change occurs on the design side. And you can see also that this gives us a fundamental division between what we can call foundational profiles versus transitional profiles. The 1-3 is foundational. The 1-4 is transitional. The 2-4 is foundational. The 2-5 is transitional because it's getting ready, preparing for the change of the personality line. So these alternate, these foundational and transitional profiles. So the first question is, do you have a foundational profile, a 1-3, 2-4, 3-5, 4-6, 5-1, or 6-2? Or do you have a transitional profile, the 1-4, the 2-5, the 3-6, the 4-1, the 5-2, or the 6-3? And you'll find that it's about 7 times more common to have a foundational than a transitional profile. Just looking at the statistics, because it's really around 21 hours that the sun is in a foundational profile in relation to its design date. And then there's only 2 or 3 hours where the transitional profiles occur. And then there's another foundational profile, and then the transitional profile, and so on. So they alternate, but they alternate in a lopsided way, where the foundational profile occurs at such greater amount of time, for such a longer time than the transitional profile occurs. You have to understand that we only really get a glimpse of the unconscious after the fact. So in some sense, the 1-3 and the 1-4 see themselves as pretty much the same. I say pretty much because they each have access to their first line conscious. The only thing that they really understand as different from each other is what they've been able to piece together of their unconscious through becoming aware of the unconscious. So if you take a 1-3 and a 1-4, and neither of them have really become aware much of the unconscious. See, the unconscious is like a conveyor belt. It brings contents into consciousness progressively over time. As we psychically develop, we gain access to more and more new contents which rise above or pass through the bar of repression, as it's called to the psychoanalysts. This bar of repression bars us from seeing into the unconscious. And it's one of the great bits of hubris of the conscious mind that it thinks it knows itself. Copernicus dethroned humanity and planet Earth as the center of the cosmos. Darwin dethroned humanity as the God-given, God-created sort of form that didn't evolve, by showing actually, no, humans evolved as well. But it was Freud who really dethroned the human from their own psyche, showing that they have another strange bedfellow, they have another tenant of the house of the psyche, and that is their unconscious. And so it is the great hubris of the human to imagine that they know themselves so fully, that they know their desire fully. Consider how often a person says something like, I didn't mean to do that. Well, that's assuming that we know the entirety of our desire. But according to the great French psychoanalyst Jacques Lacan, desire is unconscious. We merely attest to what we believe we desire. We don't necessarily know what we desire. We get to discover what we desire. And that's how the unconscious works. We discover. The 1-3 discovers that they're different from a 1-4. The 2-4 discovers they're different from a 2-5. The 3-5 discovers they're different from a 3-6. And what is this difference that they discover? It's the unconscious line. They discover that they develop in a different way. They have the same continuity. The 1-3 and the 1-4 share the continuity of the first line. Not only continuity between the profiles, but a sort of self-continuity that is the continuity of the psyche, of the conscious mind. They share the same quality that gives their sense of self continuity. And yet they have a difference that they get to discover. And that difference is in the unconscious line. The 1-4 knows how different they are from the 2-4. The 2-5 knows how different they are from the 3-5. Because we're talking at the difference of the conscious mind, the conscious personality. So it's very easy. I mean, the 1-4 would say, I'm nothing like that person, the 2-4. They might not realize that they both develop the same way through the fourth line, unconscious. The 2-5 says, I'm nothing like that 3-5. They might not realize that their development occurs through the fifth line in the same way. The personality is who we think we are, or sometimes even jokingly stated, who we think we are, because we may actually think unconsciously that we are something different. We might not realize that we think we are this way or think we are that way. The unconscious thinks as well, and we're not always aware of what it thinks. We get to discover what it thinks as well. Now, how does profile relate to purpose? Well, one of the things that people tend to ask about when they get into human design is the incarnation cross. And it's very hard to tell people something useful or valuable about their incarnation cross unless they have an understanding of profile. And of course, profile, as mentioned, requires an understanding of the lines. So you have to understand the qualities of the lines. And without going into detail, I'll just say, we can take the profile names for the lines. The first line is an investigator. Well, understanding that it's about investigating. The second line is the hermit, which is kind of the natural, who just knows how to do something and they don't know how they know how to do it. And you ask them how, and they say, like this. Or they say, go away, leave me alone. And you say, you should show me how you do that. The hermit who puts up the wall and who resists, and yet has all this natural talent. The third line is the martyr, which is really the great experimenter, the great trial and error, experimentation, the great pessimist who kind of sees for themselves and is also willing to sacrifice themselves, burn the whole thing to the ground. The fourth line, opportunist, who builds the network, the friendship, and so on. The fifth line, the heretic, who brings practical provisions in times of crisis, which heretically go against the received wisdom, and yet will either lead to their success or failure in the growing or destruction of the fifth line's reputation. And the sixth line, the role model, the fool on the hill, who sort of doesn't have a dog in the race, and so they can tell you with more objectivity, or they can give you sort of a cleaner perspective because they're not biased. And of course, these are just caricatures, but as you kind of understand these fundamental caricatures, you start to see, okay, the 1-3 and the 1-4, we have the investigator martyr, who's willing to throw everything away and start over, or we have the investigator opportunist, who's looking to build their opportunity network. And So we start to get a glimpse of purpose here, but you really have to understand the gates, because that's what the Incarnation Cross is. The Incarnation Cross is a collection of 4 gates, the personality and the design, sun, earths. The same 4 gates, by the way, that create the profile. And you can't really even understand the Incarnation Cross without understanding what profile on that cross. How different a 1-3 cross of Eden is from a 1-4 cross of Eden, or a 2-4 cross of Eden, or a 2-5, or a 3-5, or a 3-6, or a 4-6. And how different these 7 profiles are of each right angle cross, just in the same personality sun. And then when you realize that they can have any of the 4 gates of the personality sun, pretty soon you realize that there's actually 28 different combinations of profile for each right angle incarnation cross. For juxtaposition, there's only one. They each kind of have their own name. And then for the left angle crosses, you have 4 variations for each, so you actually have 8 different left angle cross combinations with profile. So what you start to realize is, to really get into Incarnation Cross and to understand purpose through Incarnation Cross, you need to put it in context. This is why when Ra taught Incarnation Cross, he taught it in sequence. He taught it going around the wheel, 12 profiles for each gate, right? That's 768 total combinations of profile and gate. That's a lot. And so then you start to understand, I'm a 5-1 cross of healing. I start to understand how different that is from the 5-2 cross of healing. And I look at what came before. I look at the vessel of love, and I look at the juxtaposition cross. And it really tells a story. And you start to see that purpose is essentially contextual, or not that it's relativistic in any sense, but that you have to understand the purpose in the context of other purposes. It's very hard to understand purpose unless you look at how other profiles and how other incarnation crosses are meant to operate, so to speak. And even then it's difficult, because all we really have are the generics. What I mean by the generics are the sort of generic keynotes. And living your design is really about making it your own. There's a lot of 5-1s out there. There's a lot of 5-1 cross of healing out there. There's a lot of 5-1 cross of healing with personality sun in 46. The other half all have personality sun in 25, the Aries cross of healing. I am a Libra cross of healing. But you can't really predict what my experience of the 5-1 Libra cross of healing is, or how I'm going to express that, unless I really am just sort of living the conditioned not self life. Because the moment I start making decisions according to my design, profile doesn't say anything about design, right? The 5-1 cross of healing could be a reflector with the gate 46 and an undefined G center. Or they could be a generator or a manifesting generator with all 9 centers defined. They could be single or split, wide split, or simple split, or triple split, or quad split. It doesn't say anything about the mechanics. So when we go back to how I started this, it also doesn't say anything about the awareness, by the way. I could be a quad right or a quad left or anything in between. I could have tones from any of the binaries. It could be a splenic binary or ajna or solar plexus binary. I could have any of the colors. None of that is taken into account when we look at incarnation cross and profile. So again, if you think of these 3 pillars of human design, the mechanics, that is type, strategy, authority, centers, channels, definition. Then you look at awareness, variable, tone, color. Then you look, particularly on the personality side, I guess it could be called the body's awareness on the design side. And then you look at this 3rd pillar of purpose. Purpose, that's incarnation cross, that's profile. And so to really understand purpose, you can't just, so many people ask, okay, this is my incarnation cross, what does that mean? Well, it's very easy to ask a question like that. It's very difficult to understand any answer you might get. And instead, you might want to develop more questions and different questions that are easier to understand the answer to, and to kind of understand the context that it's in, and really get a story out of it. You start to see the story of the wheel. You start to see the story of what each profile is doing. If the first line is trying to get to the foundation, what's it trying to get to the foundation of? Well, it's hexagram, the hexagram it's a part of. So if your first line, the first line is really just asking, what does it even mean to do this thing? Right? What is it about? How do I know if I'm even doing it or not? Let's get to the bottom of it. It's like a first line is really trying to become an expert and master and understand what it is that they're there to get to the foundation of. The second line is the natural. They're just doing it. They're there to live it. They're there to say, oh, you've been theorizing. Well, while you've been studying it, I've been actually doing it. I've been practicing it. Theory versus praxis. Then the third line comes along and it says, okay, we have all these first lines who've studied the heck out of it. We have all these second lines who are all saying that they're just really good at it naturally. Now it's up to me to see who's good at it or not, to see if it really works or not. Then you get to the fourth line, they just assume if it's made it that far, it's already passed the third line test, it's time to externalize, it's time to convey to the other. But not all externalization is equal. There's good and bad communication. There's good and bad marketing. There's good and bad ways of expressing things. So the fourth line is here to figure out the best way to express something, the best way to get it across to the other. Then you have the fifth line. The fifth line is here to bring about something new. They're here to bring about something different. They're here to universalize their heresy. And by the time you get to the sixth line, they're not even looking at their gate anymore. They're looking out through the whole circuitry. The abstract sixth line looking out at all the abstract gates. Right? The sixth line is really here to have this view from above, this sort of bird's eye view. And they're looking to the next hexagram as well. They're looking at what else is out there. So we really have to put profile in the context of the whole wheel and the journey around the wheel. And we have to really understand that for each gate in the wheel, there are 12 steps, the 12 profiles. And really, the incarnation cross, which is for each of those 12 steps, there are actually 4 gates implicated. The gate you're in, plus its opposite, then the gate 88 degrees before, plus its opposite. So you really end up in a very interesting territory where you have these 4 gates that make up the incarnation cross, and that also make up the profile. So to really understand profile, we have to start there. We have to understand the context of what it is we're talking about. We're talking about the costume of purpose, and we're talking about what we're here to do. Fifth lines are here to get out something new into the collective. Fifth line universalizes. The fourth line externalizes. They're here to influence. The third line experiments. It's here for trial and error, and so on. And we all have a role to play. And that's what we really get to discover. And no amount of description of the sort of homogenized keynote of a line or of a profile or of an incarnation cross is going to be able to predict ahead of time what that's going to look like for somebody who's really living their design and who has gone through that 7-year deconditioning cycle. That's for them to discover. That's for them to find out. That's for you to find out. You're here to discover your purpose, to find out what your purpose is through making the correct decisions, the decisions that essentially allow the mechanics to operate as they're designed, which then allows the awareness and the cognition to emerge. And then from there, you get to fulfill your purpose.
Have there ever been a group of insurance salesmen that or car salesmen that come to the cafe and they don't want anything to drink? Has that ever happened?
Yeah.
Car salesmen?
Well, we don't really get car salesmen,
Why?
And at least I'm not asking. I'm not
probably
asking
because
them
they
what
know
they do.
it's like shitty food and they can't
Yeah.
get what they want.
Right.
Car salesmen are real sharp. Have you ever gone in to buy a new car and they tell you your credit's not that great? Has that ever happened to you? How do you know? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
They can come out with a piece of paper that's got shit on it. You don't even know, right? I bought so many cars with no money. I've had 3 repos. The longest I've driven without getting repoed is 7 months, but you can go 6 months easy. And it's not a crime. It's not a crime. It's not against the law. It's not. You say, oh, I was broke, I forgot, But you don't get them back.
Yeah.
But it's not a crime. And they just do that all day long. Right? It's real easy to buy a car. And buying a used car, it's like that trailer sitting right there. My friend who bought it kept telling me, and he must have told me half a dozen times, it's got a brand new roof. How the fuck does that look like a brand new roof? It looks like somebody just poured 5-gallon buckets of something
Right.
on there, It's not a brand new roof. It doesn't leak, but it's not a brand new roof. Not at all.
Well, my time went so quickly. I went lickety-splitly out to my old 55 as I drove away slowly, feeling so holy. God knows I was feeling alive. And now the sun's coming up. I'm riding with Lady Luck, freeway cars and trucks, stars beginning to fade, and I lead the parade, just a wishing I'd stayed a little longer.